prelude. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Sharon, for that beautiful prelude. And thank you, Mark, for leading us in the gathering song. And thank you all for sharing your time with us today. I'm Rick Schwartz, and I'm normally behind the scenes for our Zoom services doing the tech guy stuff. But today is Reverend Nori's day off, so I am your host. And I'd like to warmly welcome All Souls member Sarah Sally Hautzinger as our guest speaker today. Sarah is a professor of anthropology at Colorado College, and today, in advance of Earth Day, she will share what she's been learning about the spirituality of caring for our climate, including ways of linking into spirit-driven global and local climate action networks. I hope you're safe and well wherever you are, and I hope you enjoy today's service. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. Before our regular announcements, I want to remind us all of a couple of things we're doing for our virtual services. First, I ask everyone to stay muted during the service except for those who are speaking or performing, or today we have special dispensation at 1 or 2 times in the service, and we'll tell you about that when it happens. You'll still be able to hear everything, and you can use your chat box to say hi or to other folks and to make comments. If you're joining us for the first time, feel free to say that in the chat as well. Lynn Hannon, who's a member of our welcome team, will check in with you privately to answer any questions you might have and to help you get more connected to All Souls. Second, I invite you to join us after service for our virtual fellowship, which in Zoom language is called breakout rooms. I'll assign everyone to a breakout room where you can unmute yourself and hobnob with your roommates. There is a choir band breakout room where I've assigned, or I will have assigned, members of the All Souls choir and band. You can leave the breakout room at any time by clicking your leave button. If you want to change rooms, just click ask for help and I'll check in with you. AB has already posted those instructions in the chat box. Because of the nature of this service today, Sarah has suggested a topic for each of you to consider addressing in your breakout rooms. I'll be showing you that topic later on in the service. This is, of course, optional. And as I said, I'll post that topic a couple of times just before we go to breakout rooms. Now for the announcements. During this time of Zoom services, we're not sharing joys and concerns on Sundays. Instead, Reverend Norrie hosts a Joys and Concerns Zoom meeting on Tuesday evenings at 5:30 p.m. Mountain Time. See our website and our e-letter for details and for a link to join that meeting. We are still accepting applications for our Director of Religious Exploration, aka DRE, position, which will open up when Beth Green moves to North Carolina amid much wailing and gnashing of teeth. We're going to miss her. This is a part-time paid position. The deadline for applications is Sunday, April 25th, which is next Sunday. You can get all the details on the employment page of our website. AB will post the link to that page in the chat. The April pre-K program is now available on our YouTube channel. Like our other pre-K programs, you can find it in the RE playlist on the channel. Mark your calendars. Part 2 of our current adult RE workshop on deepening spiritual practices will be held from noon to 1:30 p.m. Mountain Time on Sunday, May 2nd. This workshop is led by Beth Green and Justin Lincoln, and no registration is needed. If you missed part 1 of that workshop, you can see the recording on our YouTube channel. It is a private video, so please email Beth Green at dre@asuuc.net to get the access link. This is just a smidgen of what's happening. You can get lots more info by reading our weekly e-letter. And if you want to subscribe to the e-letter, please go ahead and post that desire in the chat, and we'll make sure that we get you subscribed. And now, let's take just a few moments to scroll through the gallery and greet each other with a wave, live long and prosper, or a hi. Just say hi like that. It's good to see everyone today, and I always do this, and I try to say hello to folks by name, Brianna and August and Virginia and Stephen, but there are just too many of you to say hello to in person. And so I'll just say, and Tommy, I'll just say thank you again. This is a great time for gathering, and we appreciate the fact that you take the time to be in this space at this time on this day. One silver lining to this pandemic is that it has shown us that spiritual community does not, I repeat, does not require physical closeness. Your presence here and all of your diversity is ample evidence of that. And it gives us fresh opportunities for expanding our understanding of community as we work toward, and it's getting closer day by day, emergence into the post-pandemic world. Each of us is beautiful. Each of us is wonderful. And together, we are a truly beloved community. So I invite you now to take in a focusing breath and reflect on the shared sanctity of this gathering time brought to you by you as I ring the bell. All right, Carla, unmute yourself and take it away.
Greetings, fellow Earthlings. When I think of our chalice, I think of the torch that Lady Liberty holds. And I wanted to show you mine, which I made, and you can make. All you need are three things. You need a paper roll. You need some tissue paper and construction paper. There's the flame. And you need a little flashlight. And this chalice goes with me to marches and rallies and things like that, and things in the dark, because it really shows up when you turn on the flashlight. Just wanted to show you that idea. So today for lighting the chalice, we're going to acknowledge the original inhabitants of our place. And I'd like to do this with you chiming in, even though you're unmuted.
Or muted.
Even though you're muted, sorry. And I'll just say a line at a time, so you don't need to read it, but you can close your eyes and just copy what I say and let your imagination picture what we say in each line. We offer respect and gratitude to the earth, to the sun, to the air, to the water, to the land, to the microbiota, to the plants, the animals, to prehistoric inhabitants and indigenous people of this place. Ute, Comanche, Arapaho, Apache, Cheyenne, Kiowa, and Lakota. To everyone here and to our ancestors and to all beings with whom we coexist, by whose grace we live. I'd like to share with you a fun thing called the rain game. I learned it in the 70s from the New Games folks, and I've done it with preschoolers and grown-ups, and everybody seems to enjoy it. It's basically a guided visualization with sound effects made by all of us. It's usually played standing in a circle, but today we'll sit and listen to each other. First, we're going to practice the 5 sounds that we'll all make during the narrative. The first sound is the hum of bees. So everybody try that, even though you can't hear each other yet. I hear somebody besides me, which is fine. The second sound you make by rubbing your hands together. This is the wind, the sound of wind. The third sound will be the snap fingers, raindrops, the first raindrops of the storm. The fourth sound will be the downpour, and for that you need to slap your thighs. And the fifth sound will be thunder, and for that you need to stamp your feet.
Heard that dog.
Now it's time to unmute yourselves and turn off your camera if you wish. Close your eyes so you can immerse yourself in the story, listening for the times to make a sound together. Imagine yourself resting in a field of wildflowers, gazing at a clear blue sky. A few puffy white clouds loll around as butterflies flit and bees hum among the blossoms. Everybody hum. Then you notice that clouds and shadows are gathering as the warm wind rises. So you head for home. On the way, you can smell the rain approaching, and you can feel the first raindrops. Just a few, until you get indoors, and then the downpour breaks out. Through a window, you watch lightning flash, and you feel thunder boom. After a time, the thunder rumbles off into the distance. It continues for a while and begins to diminish. And then, like the last kernels of popcorn in the pan, a few raindrops persist and lessen. The wind wanders off with the clouds, and you step outdoors into sunshine. And among the flowers, the butterflies and bees are busy again. Water has refreshed everything. You can hear the nearby creek tumbling along. Earth hums under your feet, and all is right with the world.
Oh, would you warm mine up, I guess? Thank you. That was
so much fun. Thank you, Miss Carla. So much fun. Hey, everyone. We have a song for you today. I have a song for you today called We Recycle. And I confess, I listened to children's music before I even had my daughter. Yes, I did. And because of the Children's Chorale, because of the Van Mannens, and special guest today, Lindsay Facknitz, will be singing for us. We Recycle by the Van Mannens is one of their 50-year legacy of music, ecological and spiritual music. They're not performing anymore, but they're on Spotify. You can even see a really cute slideshow about their life in music and their life together. But today I'm going to start We Recycle with our signs and ask you, as one of the ways you participate in this song, to sign it with me, because I cannot sign and play the guitar at the same time. Yes, this is true. So we recycle. Thank you, Bonnie. So we recycle. And that'll come during the choruses. And during the story of We Recycle, because the change that we're creating on this planet must be done together. We have to accomplish this together. You'll hear things in the song that are like totally not Earth Keepers. So together we have to say no. So let's try it. And even in your Zoom box, I'll say 1, 2, 3, no, and we'll say no all together so I can see it. 1, 2, 3, no. And then contrarily, if you are going to be Captain Planet, do you see my cape? Captain Planet, and in Be an Earth Keeper, there are things that we can do together. So we'll say 1, 2, 3, yes. And you'll see that you'll hear the things that are yeses that we can do together. So I'll start with a story. I just had a drink of some soda pop. All that's left is this aluminum can. Well, the pop is gone. It's just a piece of trash. What do I do with the can? I think I'll throw it out the window.
No!
Drop it in the lake.
No!
Fit it in the dryer.
No!
Or take it to the recycle center.
Yes!
Yes.
We recycle. We don't just throw it away. We recycle so you can use it once again someday. I just bought the morning newspaper. I read Garfield and Looney Tunes too. I read all the stories from the front to the back. What do I do with it now that I'm through? A newspaper. I think I'll put in the toaster.
No!
Underneath your bed.
No!
Hide it in my underwear.
Ah!
Or take it to the recycle center.
Yes!
We recycle. We don't just throw it away. We recycle so we can use it once again someday. Jolly good, I think you've got it. I just made a peanut butter sandwich. I had to scrape it from the bottom of the jar. Along with some jelly, it's sitting in my belly. What do I do with this empty glass jar? I think I'll put it in the freezer.
No! Baby.
Throw it in the woods.
No!
Float it in the aquarium. Or take it to the recycle center.
Woo!
We recycle. We don't just throw it away. We recycle so we can use it once again someday. Now this is a master's level recycling verse. What do you do with the onion skins and the eggshells and the celery leaves? We put it in the C word, compost. I just made some fresh squeezed orange juice to have with my breakfast meal. It was a tasty treat full of vitamin C. What do I do with the peel? I think I'll flush it down the toilet.
No!
Leave it in the sink. Feed it to your little brother.
Okay.
Or take it to the compost pile.
Yes!
We recycle. We don't just throw it away. We recycle so we can use it once again someday. One more time. We recycle. We don't just throw it away. We recycle so we can use it once again someday. Use it once again someday.
Well, thank you, Greta, and thank you to Carla and to Heidi, and thank you to everyone who's taken some time to join us this morning on this gorgeous spring day for our Earth Day service, just before, as Rick mentioned, April 22nd, the actual day. And I want to start by offering a vision, or perhaps a UU version of a wish or a prayer, that in 100 years, All Souls congregants can gather, hopefully in our sanctuary, although I don't actually plan to be there, to celebrate how we, 100 years later, the globe's peoples rose to the challenge of climate collapse. And on Earth Day, we can simply celebrate our beautiful blue planet home. And unfortunately, this is not yet that time. And as Greta has just reminded us, this is not a drill. So the thoughts I want to share with you on this April Day in 2021 will focus on the challenge of how to take effective climate action and preserve and restore much of the interdependent web of all existence of which we are part, as we're called to in our seventh principle. And specifically, I want to turn to the ways in which practical aspects of desperately needed climate action, complying with the Paris Agreement to stay below 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming, closing Martin Drake, our dirty coal burning plant downtown, etc., how there are also spiritual dimensions of great import for congregational and coalitional work like ours. So what did James Gustave Speth, the U.S. advisor on global climate change, so famously say? He said, I used to think that the top environmental programs were biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse, and climate change. I thought that 30 years of good science could address these problems. I was wrong. The top environmental problems are selfishness, greed, and apathy. And to deal with these, we need a cultural and spiritual transformation. Now, I've come to share that conviction, and that's what's brought me before you, standing at our pulpit today. And this is my third time here speaking our sermon. And today I speak in part as Dr. Sarah Hautzinger, the anthropology professor, but I asked Rick to include my family nickname, Sally, as many of you actually here also know me as, because I want to reflect more personally today than I have in the past. And I want to convey to you some of how in recent years, the earth herself as I have come to call her, which I'll explain, is shaping my work and my life in new and, to me, quite surprising ways. I'm learning how the planetary is personal and how spiritual fellowships like ours can offer ways of deepening that connection. So I'm going to work my way to talk about what we did on March 11th for Sacred People, Sacred Earth Day. But I'm going to start a little bit further back. I want to take you back to a cold, very early morning in August of 2018, right after that massive hailstorm we had here in Cheyenne Canyon. I went to Crestone and I found myself on that morning just after dawn on a mountainside at the base of the Sangre de Cristos, just outside of the town of Crestone. And this is in the San Luis Valley, where Colorado College has a campus. Now, it's a long and fantastical story for another day, how I came to be accompanying a group of holy people from the Teyuna Federation, 4 ethnic groups in the northern part of Colombia that includes the Kogi people, how I came to be accompanying them to do work on the water systems. But in short, they had come to North America because they heard the waters crying. Now, the Kogi people in particular are sort of renowned as the rock stars of the eco-indigenous world, I've heard them called once. And that in and of itself is a long story, but they spent some 400 years cut off from the rest of the world on purpose after several massacres at the hands of the Spanish. And to become a mamo or a zaga, a male or female holy person, is a process of spending 9 years in darkness with just your mother and the teacher in the compound growing up and learning to see the world in a different way from the unseen plane. And when you are introduced to the lighted world, you are charged to take care of it. If you're to continue on this path of becoming a mamo or a zaga, you spend another 9 years in darkness. Just to give you some idea of why they are so esteemed. But they came because they heard the waters of North America crying. And to give you some idea, they went to Lake Erie because it's the most polluted of the Great Lakes. But they came to Colorado to do pagamento work, as they called it, offerings, but also payments, and also a sort of treatment on the watersheds. And I was there in support, watching, hiking behind the mamos as they ascended the mountain and issued unearthly cries to awaken the mountain. Eventually, they found a place where the offering could be accepted, which is not just any place. And so their leader, Mamo Kandimaku, came to us and asked us to prepare to support the offering. And he said, in order to make a meaningful offering to our mother, it has to be something that you love, that you cherish. And he invited us, think of some things, for example, that your mother gave you that you loved. And that got me thinking about mothers and offerings, and my mother giving me, I don't know, cream of wheat with brown sugar and a touch of butter. But I started thinking about mothers, and I started thinking about my mother and my daughters. Now, we just spent a month traveling together, the family in Japan. And even as my daughters and I grow ever closer and have more and more love between us, there's also hurt and bruising. There are times when I felt deeply hurt by how I seemed to be regarded or disregarded or treated. And as I was sitting there on that morning, preparing my heart to make an offering to the Mother Earth, I remembered my own mother telling me, or writing in her column, that she and I had eventually become best friends, she said, and that broke a cycle in our family of mothers and daughters hating one another across generations. Now, I was shocked to hear her say that. I didn't know she saw it that way. But I thought of that, and I thought of my own hurt as a mother, and I thought of, if I could feel that much pain around these relationships, what would Mother Earth be feeling? what would the planet be feeling about how we, her children, were treating her? I also realized I was the only person there that had physically given birth as a mother. And I found tears just streaming down my face. Again, not out of brokenheartedness, but that sense of one's heart breaking open. And for me, this was a new kind of embracing of Mother Earth as my mother, as my kin. And it changed everything for me. My academic or intellectual self might critically query and deconstruct, do you mean mother metaphorically? Do you mean a unitary sentient agentive being? Or might I not be essentializing or worse, misgendering her, it, them, the planet as a she? But the point for me was none of that. For me, reframing the planet as my kin emotionally called me into account to ponder her harms and what restoration and restitution would look like. This epiphany for me was just one example of the planetary becoming personal and about the spiritual dimensions of this crisis. The scholar Donna Haraway, a Colorado College graduate, triple major, she calls this making kin with the more than human world. And it's her way of, as her book is titled, staying with the trouble being for her species loss and climate collapse. And now these aren't problems to solve overnight. So she encourages us to stay with this trouble, to find our ways of staying with this trouble, and especially to resist falling into despair and paralysis and preserve our sense of responsibility or the ability to remain responsive. And so I have come to want to explore how ecologies, not just of ecosystems, but ecologies of oneself. What would it mean to restore one's relationship with oneself? Ecologies of relationship with one another, ecologies of communities, of regions, nations, and global communities. And all of this in the intervening 2 years since that moment, this kinship making it personal, has intensified my commitment in unexpected ways, as I mentioned. This turn toward what some call spiritual ecology has increasingly shaped my teaching and my activism. And again, I'm starting to understand climate collapse not merely as a problem of biological or ecological or technological or geopolitical or policy dimensions, but also as problems with our emotional, spiritual, and community relations. And all of this has urged me to still more new partnerships with the various spiritual lineages that I work with at the Baca campus in Crestone in the San Luis Valley, which include multiple Buddhists and Zoroastrians and Sufis and Shinto-based and Hindu-based and emergent religions, various Native American religions. My partnerships with y'all, All Souls, my home congregation for 18 years now. More recently, my dear friends from the Earth Church. These spiritual paths that center the earth. An even more global dimension came for me when I was so fortunate to get to attend the COP, the Convention of Parties, number 25, and these are the United Nations climate negotiations through which the Paris Agreement and other agreements have been forged in 2019 in Madrid as part of the Colorado College delegation there. And there, some of us were able to attend a day-long training with an organization called Green Faith, which is an international interfaith environmental organization. And after that, the pandemic set in, and participating in Green Faith Zooms with people from all over the world became part of my pandemic routine. So let's fast forward to the near present. Just about a month ago, I organized two events, one in person in the noon hour and one on Zoom for March 11th. Perhaps you remember some of the notices around this. And March 11th was designated by Green Faith as Sacred People, Sacred Earth, and it was billed as the biggest ever faith-based day of action for climate justice. Now, this was on a Thursday for reasons I still don't really understand, and I learned about it just about 2 weeks before. But with the help of many participating here today, All Souls showed up. Nori, Heidi, Carla, Kay were included in that group. Others showed up too critically. Maria from Earth Church and many of the children from Earth Church, Gabriel, Gail Nuth, who is with me in Madrid, was here representing the Daughters of Abraham and the Methodist Church. High Plains was represented. And Lindsay, who will sing for us in a bit and who I always say I credit mostly for getting Martin Drake closed down in just 2 more years, was there representing many organizations, including Beyond Coal. Local groups like Green Lotus and Communidance were represented, but also a student of mine, Emily, is a Quaker who zoomed in from Maryland. So we had, in some ways, some of these tendrils toward across congregations and across places. So we were small, but we were mighty. And it felt like we embedded and embodied that anthropologist quote from Margaret Mead, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world, and indeed it's the only thing that ever has. But we weren't alone, and far from it. We are a point of connection in a whole web spreading around the globe. And I want to give you some idea of that and share my screen to show you a short video of the Green Faith International wrap-up. Watching that video, I think, makes one thing that we know very clear. There can't be any such thing as climate justice without social justice, and all our current struggles are interrelated. Environmental justice, racial justice related to Black Lives Matter and broader movements, pandemic justice, and equitable distribution of vaccines. All of these, for me, are versions of I can't breathe. And the bodhisattva for spiritual climate action, I believe, is that none of us can breathe easy until all of us can breathe. As Carla's land acknowledgement reminds us at the beginning of this service, our current so-called civilization was built on stolen land with stolen labor. So it's a tall order. It risks overwhelming us. It risks us losing the balance between inner outer, between simply being well and doing right. My friend, the author James O'Dea, who lives in Crestone, he writes about the tensions and contradictions between the paths of the activist and what he calls the mystic. The former activists are characterized as angry and oppositional, and the latter as detached and passive. And so the memory from that day of Sacred People, Sacred Earth this year that most stayed with me was when my friend Maria Van Putten, who's here at the house with me today, during the in-person event when we were walking toward Nevada Avenue with signs and banners, she told me that this was the first thing resembling a demonstration or a protest that she'd taken part in as an adult quite intentionally. And she explained that she was raised by activists whom she associated with rage and frustration, and that this kind of activism felt different. Now, I think it can be. Green Faith has released their 10 demands. Greta and George talked about just 3. I work a lot with Myra Jackson. She's one of my teachers in this work, who carries titles like Diplomat for the Biosphere and Permanent United Nations Representative for the Global Commons. And Myra Jackson was part of devising the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals that include things like climate action, but also reducing inequality, gendered inequality, etc. Once, though, Myra, in a lecture, shared with us that there was a secret goal number 0, and it was called love and joy. So there are all those concrete, practical goals out there, but without love and joy, none of the rest has value. And it's in that spirit, I think, then, that this kind of activism can be different, as it can be underpinned by love, joy, and yes, kinship, as tied to our planetary home. So back to Green Faith and that kind of interfaith organizing. What kind of special potential might such a thing possess? It being based in where we invite in our spirituality. Anthropologists of religion will point to the ways that spiritual and religious communities engender greater mutual trust, and through that they're able to ask of their members greater commitment, inner reliance, and self-sacrifice and self-discipline. And so when we consider the 3 questions that most United Nations dialogues focus around, where are we, where do we want to go, and how do we get there? The big one is, yes, how do we get there? And we can have these schema. I've pointed out 3 of them to you. But when my mind's eye looks to how we get there from here, that in 100 years, all souls could be celebrating what we did, I don't quite have it in view, except to sense that there's something just over the horizon. And maybe I just sense it in the sense that I can well imagine it and so desire to. A global movement where the loving, filial rage brought from faith-based groups can provide the rising groundswell. Can global networks like Green Faith provide the kind of scaffolding for the radical changes we need to make? That's where my mind and my heart go, that only a spiritually informed global movement could take us over the hump. So I look out on the horizon. The ethnographer of me wants to find it and study it. But I search and I wait. And then I realize, maybe the cavalry isn't coming. And I think of that adage, if not you, who? If not now, when? And I find myself writing constant notes about performing an anthropology, a spirituality, an activism of incitement, sparking this movement, joining this movement. Just 2 days ago, I read that Audre Lorde once wrote, the learning process is something you can incite, literally incite like a riot. And I find myself wanting to incite myself to get out of bed and do it. You and all the broader communities of which I'm part. And I think that UUs in particular might play an important bridging role, exactly because so many of us don't necessarily identify as deists or as religious in the conventional sense, but it is often our fervor and passion for beauty, justice, complexity, and the preciousness of what we can know about life that bring us into community. For our eco-spiritual work, elevating our reverence for that interdependent web of life of which we are part, legitimately constitutes a spiritual path in and of itself. And I think that's why UUs are so present in networks like Green Faith. And it offers us tremendous potential to think what earth-based spiritual paths can look like and to model this as we build bridges across diverse spiritual sectors. In the end, it probably really matters how we see things, who and what we see as kin, where we see the boundaries for our bodies and ourselves to begin and to end. And so to again cite my mentor, Myra Jackson, she often says things like, I am a field of being a field. And when I walk the earth, I'm walking in my own wider body, the earth's field of being a field. And this view informs her work on movements like rights of nature, which would accord the things like human rights or youth rights or indigenous rights to things like rivers and other waterways, and personhood to more than human selves like elephants, like gorillas. And it's such reframing, in my view, that can build this response ability, the ability to stay responsive, to resist paralysis, to resist despair. This reframing, I believe, can help us make the radical changes needed to our ways of living and thinking and feeling. Now that we would do that is far from assured. Perhaps it's even far from likely at this point. But they remain, I submit to you with all my heart, possible. After all, the seas are rising, and so can we. So must we. So are we. Let it be so. Thank you.
Please join me in our sermon response song, Blue Boat Home. Though below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat. Sun as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on, reach the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
Today's offertory reading is The Peace of Wild Things by Wendell Berry. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free. Options for giving will be presented on the screen and in the chat.
Good morning, everyone. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here with you this morning. My name is Lindsay Facknitz, and I'm here to sing the offertory song, but also I'm here to offer you meaningful action and an invitation to embodying being the change that we need right now. And I just put in the chat several times. I'm going to do it again right now. This week, a bill is going to be presented on our state legislature called Senate Bill 200. The name of this bill is Reduce Greenhouse Gases, Increase Environmental Justice. And while I sing my offertory song, which is a song I wrote called Call Them Up, I want you all to open up a tab on your email. I want you all to kind of ignore singing along with my song right now and open up a tab on your email and find your state legislator. There's a link in the chat in finding your state senator, and write a brief email and just say, hey, please support Senate Bill 200. I'm concerned about climate crisis and environmental justice, and this bill addresses both of those items. And I thank you for your time. Nothing for me as an activist, an environmental activist, nothing is more exciting and more important for my mind and my heart and my soul than to actually take action. And that's what this song is all about that I'm going to be singing. This song is all about embodying what's in our heart. And that's what this morning is all about. And actually reaching out to people and telling them what we're doing and how they can also be a part of it. So, call them up. Here we go. In these times of trouble, every day feels like a struggle. It's easy to go through your day and wallow in the pain. Heed a different call. It's for the big and the small. Stand up, walk out of your door. Don't be alone no more. Call them up, call them out, call them together. Take each other by the hand and be part of the change. Call them up, call them out, call them together. Let your voice be loud and true. We're marching today. Now the action we're doing today is actually emailing your state senator. So that's what I'm going to say next time I come around to the chorus. We're emailing today. Woohoo! Action! Feels good, don't it? Call your family, your friends and neighbors too. Be brave and bold to see the goal. Love shows you what to do. Call businesses and schools, church leaders, media too. Share your heart, stand up, take part, tell them we need them too. Call them up, call them out, call them together. Take each other by the hand and be part of the change. Call them up, call them out, call them together. Let your voice be loud and true. We're emailing today. Leaders must be made to join in our parade. Let them know, get up, let's go, we're marching all the way. Call your mayor and governor, city council, state senator. Tell them how together now we're changing for the better. We gotta change those laws, that's what we're doing. That's why we're emailing right now, because we're gonna change the laws, that's what we're doing. Woo! Call them up, call them out, call them together. Take each other by the hand and be part of the change. Call them up, call them out, call them together. Let your voice be loud and true. We're emailing today. Call them up, call them out, call them together. Take each other by the hand and be part of the change. Call them up, call them out, call them together. Let your voice be loud and true. We're emailing today. Let your voice be loud and true. We're calling our state senators tomorrow. Let your voice be loud and true. We're marching today. Senate Bill 200. Tell them to support it. You're being part of the change. Oh, and also one more thing. Call a friend. Call them up and tell them to email state senators too. Thanks, everybody. We're doing it. You guys are doing it. Woo!
Please join me in our sermon response song, which was not nearly as rousing as that. Thanks. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
Our closing words are from Llewellyn Van Lee. We think that the problems of the world and ourselves can only be solved through doing, not realizing that it is this focus on ceaseless activity that has created much of our present imbalance. Rather than asking, what should I do? We can learn to reflect, how should I be?
Please join us in our Extinguishing the Chalice song. Now, as we leave this place, the chalice dims, but the fire still burns within our hearts. Beyond these doors, now as we leave this place, memories carry us into the world, and we will return, for now we know that something greater than any of us alone is part of us as we leave this place.
Well, I want to say thank you to all of you for coming today, and a special thank you to everyone who helped make this service happen today. Mark, Heidi, Carla, Lindsay, Sarah, AB, and Sharon. And now we're going to move to the breakout rooms, and I'm going to create those as quickly as I can. But Sarah has suggested a topic that if you wish to talk about, you can. You can visit freely on your own as well. If you decide to take on the topic, it would be, in what ways do you practice staying with the trouble of ecological crisis? How might we do that as a congregation? And can we do so while balancing being and doing? And of course, that's optional. You can also take some time to visit among yourselves. And now we'll hear the postlude, and then I'll set up the breakout rooms. Here we go. This is Protectors of the Earth, performed by Sharon.